Hello and welcome to the course Instructional Technology with Articulate 360. I am going to start off by giving a brief overview of the concepts and underlying ideologies behind instructional design as an introduction through this PowerPoint presentation. So let's first think about what is instructional learning and what makes a good instructional design. So perhaps you're interested in learning about how to create instructional content, or maybe you already have some type of experience with instructional design in the past. We can take a moment to reflect on what was successful in your previous designs, or you can also take a moment and think about what makes a good instructional design. A lot of the times people agree that instructional design, in order for it to be successful, will take a lot of pre-planning as well as understanding the needs and interests of our students, and as well as the different types of learners and their backgrounds. So let's continue by differentiating between instructional learning versus instructional design. So instructional learning can be described as intentional facilitation of learning goals. And instructional learning is always purposeful, where the learner and the instructor have a common interest of learning something that they can utilize and is of value for them in the real world. Instructional design, on the other hand, is a plan of the purposeful activity. So while one is sort of an overall or broad view, the instructional design part comes before, where the instructor or instructional designer will create a purposeful plan of the different types of activities to use, as well as the information or materials to present to the learners that will create intentional learning from the goals that's established through instructional learning and its concepts. So let's think about, what do you think it takes to write a well thought out instructional design plan? Of course, a well thought out instructional design plan is going to take time, and it's going to take a lot of creativity as well as pre-planning and getting to know one's learners. But try to think about, based on your experiences in the past when you had to create instructional material, what did it take for you to develop something that is useful and that will garner learners' interest? Well, it will help learners stay engaged throughout the whole learning process. So what is instructional design like for students? Well, it is definitely student-centered and goal-centered. And the focus is on these following areas: how we should respond to student needs, what we want students to know, understand, and be able to do, how do we know students are learning, as well as how do we use content, technology, and pedagogy in combination that will engage all learners. There are two main objectives to instructional design and instructional planning. One of them is behavior objectives, and the other one is performance objectives. So the definition of behavior objectives are how students are expected to behave or feel when the instruction is over. And it definitely serves as a reflection point for students. Besides students having the great opportunity to learn new things, we want to create a positive experience for students when they're finished taking a course, so they can readily access that information and deem that learning as valuable towards their future careers or goals. The second type of objectives is called performance objectives. Performance objectives are what students can do when instruction is over. And there are a couple examples. We can guide content selection, development of instructional strategy, and guides for learners or curriculum specialists. The performance objectives are what we use to sometimes assess students to see how well they can respond to questions, as well as for projects that elaborates and demonstrates their thinking after they take in the contents from and materials from the course. We want them to be able to demonstrate their learning to their fullest. There are many types of instructional design models, and in this course, we're going to focus on the ADDIE instructional design model. The ADDIE instructional design model is made up of 5 steps. In the following module, we're going to take a look closely at the ADDIE instructional design model, in which you will use to create your own course and its outline. So the ADDIE model is made up of 5 steps or stages, and each step can be summarized as a keyword. So it starts with analysis. The analysis phase of the ADDIE instructional design model is to consider what is the need, to ask who, what, why, and most importantly, what is the key objectives or what exactly is the issue that you're trying to resolve. It's also when the instructor gets to know their students or learners and takes in their different types of background information, as well as what the learners can already do or what they already know before instruction starts. After the analysis stage of instructional design comes the design stage. The design stage, the instructional designer must evaluate how the training can be offered, whether it be traditional, distance, or blended learning. Blended learning is a combination of online learning and in-person learning. It also outlines the blueprint of the learning structure around your objectives, and sometimes use modules to chunk information that will allow for students to easily access sections for reuse and resequencing. The design stage also takes in the environment that the learner is in. Sometimes it can be their home environment, an office environment, or a classroom environment. All of these will affect the learning outcomes of the students and should be noted in the instructional design stage as well. The next stage is the development stage. This is when the training is being created. Different types of materials to represent the instructional design resources or material or product can be made at this stage. It can be building job aids, projects, and learning activities, and the focus on how they will be delivered. Ensure all elements of the training support the identified objectives. The development stage is also when after the design stage, the instructional designer will plan out the lessons or the course. In the development stage, they will take in feedback and make revisions for modifications for the course that they have created. Implementation stage is right before delivering the training, evaluating based on the course objectives, and presenting your training to the audience. At this point, all course materials should be made available, and there should be some kind of script that you have designed to ensure all the materials are covered properly. Implementation stage is when the learners are taking the course and they are able to access the course through either in person or through a technology medium. So you might have to determine what method they're doing that with as well. The last stage of instructional design model is the evaluation stage. At this point, the instructional designer will want to evaluate the learner's test scores. Did learners meet all course objectives? Observe and measure changes in the workplace. Analyze evaluation data to guide plans for revising the instructional course. And sometimes in courses, the evaluation stage is when the students will give feedback to the instructor. They'll think about areas that they really like about the course and offer suggestions or feedback to make the course better for next time, for the next group of learners as well. Okay, so after we talked about the ADDIE model, let's look at the goal statements. All goals created in conjunction with the instructional design lessons or plans should be SMART goals. And SMART goals are specific, measurable, accessible, realistic, and timely. One way to create a goal objective or a goal statement is to use this sentence. Upon successful completion of this course, students will be able to do blank. You can use a couple of these objectives in listing what students need or how you will measure their success or their key understandings at the end of the course. What do you really want them to grasp? As you're asking yourself or thinking for yourself to set goals, also think about when was the last time you set a goal? What was it? And what are some steps you did to achieve that goal? Next, let's look at what is instructional design based on. Often, while you're planning your instructional design, it's important to take in the prior knowledge or skills of students. Additionally, learning preferences of students should be considered, as well as the student's attitude toward administration and the teacher. All of these can affect the learning outcomes of the students. And it's a great idea to understand each of these points and to find solutions for them before the instructional material is presented to the learner. There are 4 different ways of collecting learner data as a part of the assessment for evaluation stage. One of them is called site visits, where you can go actually visit the learner in action. You can also use surveys. You collect data from the surveys that will give you information and provide student reflections of the course. And then you can look at the data to sum up commonalities as well as specifics that students noted as they're taking the course. You can also collect learner data from the learners themselves, as well as interviews. You can connect one-on-one with learners with questions prepared to ask them about the course or to take any other form of information for yourself. There are 3 parts of performance objectives: the condition, the behavior, and the criteria. The condition is the exact set of circumstances and resources available for the learner. The behavior of performance objectives are behaviors you provided, resource required. Also consider scope, complexity, and relevancy. The criteria for the performance objectives are a set of objectives that can be measured. Lastly, let's talk about the context analysis. Their performance environment and learning environment, which compose of the context analysis. There are also the environmental contexts. Here are some performance environment things to consider: the needs of the organization, physical aspects, social aspects, and relevance of skills to the workplace. Thanks for listening to the first video for the instructional design introduction. And I hope that you all have time, a great time, to listen to the remainder and rest of the course and enjoying your study here.